It was just another busy afternoon at a roadside diner off Highway 9, the kind of place where truckers, bikers, and travelers stopped for a quick meal and a little human warmth before heading back into the grind of the open road. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with the comforting aroma of bacon and pancakes sizzling on the grill. Among the regulars that day sat a group of men in leather vests, their jackets marked with the unmistakable insignia of the Hells Angels. They spoke quietly, keeping to themselves, enjoying their meals and the quiet buzz of conversation that filled the small diner. At the counter stood Emily, a young waitress barely in her 20s, working double shifts to make ends meet. She had that kind of natural kindness that made every customer feel seen, even when the day was wearing her thin. She smiled through exhaustion, served each plate with care, and treated everyone with the same respect, no matter who they were. But that calm was about to be tested in a way no one saw coming. A sleek black sports car screeched into the parking lot, its engine roaring louder than necessary, announcing the arrival of someone who wanted to be noticed. Out stepped 3 teenagers dressed in designer clothes, dripping arrogance from head to toe. They were the type who had never known struggle, the kind who saw service workers as props in their own shallow performance of superiority. As they swaggered into the diner, the entire room seemed to sense the change in energy. The bikers at the far booth looked up, silent but observant. The teens took a seat, tossing their keys on the table and scrolling through their phones as if they owned the place. When Emily approached with her usual warmth, asking for their order, one of them barely looked up. His tone was dripping with mockery as he demanded something that wasn't even on the menu. Emily tried to explain gently that they didn't serve that dish, offering alternatives with patience that came from years of customer service. But patience in their eyes was weakness. The boy leaned back, sneering as his friends chuckled. Then, without warning, he spat, right at her shoes, the saliva sliding down her leg, her face flushing red in shock and humiliation. The diner fell silent. Even the sound of the sizzling grill seemed to fade as every eye turned toward them. Emily froze, her hands trembling, her eyes watering, not just from disgust, but from the sheer disbelief that someone could treat another human being that way. The teens laughed, their cruelty feeding off each other, oblivious to the storm they had just unleashed. In the far corner, one of the bikers slowly set down his fork. He was a large man, his beard streaked with gray, his eyes cold but calm. Around him, the others followed his lead, pushing away their plates and standing up one by one. The rich teens, lost in their own arrogance, didn't notice 50 leather-clad men rising behind them like a dark tide of justice. The lead biker walked toward the counter, his boots heavy on the diner floor, each step echoing with unspoken authority. The entire place held its breath. Emily, still shaken, tried to steady her voice and told him it was fine, that she didn't want any trouble. But he simply looked at her and said, "Miss, disrespect like that don't go unaddressed in our world." The way he said it wasn't violent, but there was a weight to it, a sense of moral gravity that demanded accountability. The teenagers finally realized they were surrounded. One of them tried to laugh it off, saying they didn't mean anything by it, but their voices cracked under the pressure. The biker leader leaned closer, his face calm yet commanding, and asked one simple question: if their fathers had ever taught them what respect meant. None of them answered. The silence was answer enough. He didn't raise his hand, didn't make a threat, didn't even have to. Instead, he turned to Emily and told her she had a choice in how this story ended. The whole diner watched as she took a deep breath, still trembling but finding strength in the support that surrounded her. She didn't ask for revenge. She simply said she wanted them to understand how it felt, to be humiliated for something beyond your control. The biker nodded, then turned back to the teens. "You heard the lady," he said. "You've got something to clean up." He pointed to the floor where the spit had landed. One of the boys hesitated, then another muttered something under his breath. That was a mistake. In a flash, the collective glare of 50 Hells Angels froze him in place. With shaky hands, the teen grabbed a napkin and knelt down to clean the mess. The diner was silent except for the sound of fabric scraping against tile, a sound that carried the weight of humility. When he stood up, the biker handed him a few bills. "Now you're going to pay for your meal and leave a tip worthy of her time," he said. "Because a real man doesn't show power by putting someone down. He shows it by lifting others up." The teens fumbled for their wallets, their faces pale, their confidence shattered. They left behind a wad of cash on the counter and bolted for the door. The sound of laughter from the bikers following them. Not mocking laughter, but the kind that reminded them of the lesson they'd never forget. As the door closed behind them, the diner's atmosphere shifted back, the tension melting into quiet admiration. Emily, tears still in her eyes, looked at the biker leader and whispered, "A thank you." He shook his head gently and said, "Don't thank me, ma'am. Thank yourself for handling it with grace." Then, as simply as they had arrived, the Hells Angels sat back down, resumed their meals, and acted as though nothing had happened. Word of the incident spread across town within hours. Some called it justice, others called it karma, but everyone agreed that what happened that day was a reminder that respect isn't about wealth, status, or looks. It's about how you treat people when you think no one's watching. The irony was, someone always is. In that diner, 50 pairs of eyes made sure the scales were balanced. Emily never forgot that day, not for the humiliation, but for the unexpected kindness that followed. And for those teens, it was the moment their arrogance met a force stronger than money. Real honor, earned the hard way.